Welcome to our Wholefood Nutrition Podcast, sponsored by Megafood Canada. Today, we're going to be covering our 101 basics of what you need to know about whole food nutrition and where to start your health journey. If you're curious about vitamins, but you're not sure how to purchase the right one for your body and your needs, this is an important podcast to listen to. We're going to be equipping you with everything you need to know before you invest in another vitamin and industry secrets you may not be aware of. I'm joined by our expert educator, Lisa Kilgour. She's a registered holistic nutritionist, sought-after speaker, educator, and writer who specializes in real-life healthy eating. Refusing to accept a one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition, Lisa teaches the skills to uncover your own unique health puzzle and find a way of eating that keeps your body and mind happy and healthy. In 2015, Lisa spoke about the gut-brain connection at TEDx Kelowna, and in 2010 was voted BC's favorite nutritionist by Natural Care Canada. She's recently released a book called Undieting: Freedom from the Bewildering World of Fad Diets. Welcome, Lisa Kilgour.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Yes, we're so excited to have this conversation with you, Lisa. Honestly, I kind of want to let our audience know I am here on behalf of Megafood Canada. I started my journey of health and really came into this industry about 4 years ago, and I was a clueless consumer. I would walk down the vitamin aisles, really not sure about what purchase to make. I knew I had to, start taking multivitamins, but I was really overwhelmed by the variety of options available, the price ranges, and really didn't know how to read labels. It wasn't until I started working, at my current company that I was exposed to such amazing educators such as Lisa, who really have formed my journey. It's one of those things when you learn and see things through education, you can't unlearn it. And now I feel like I have such a good filter to, understand vitamins and making the right purchase for me and what I need for my body, that we wanted to make sure we provide the same level of knowledge for our audience. And so that's what really sparked this conversation. And, one of the things we really wanted to do is address the 101 questions that we constantly get from our consumers and to have an expert address them in a way that will really, really form the next journey that you go on with your vitamin purchases. So thank you, Lisa, for joining me on that. And if it's okay, we'll just dive right into some questions.
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
So the number one question that we always get is really a starter question, and it really is about multivitamins. You see multivitamins everywhere. You're recommended to take multivitamins, but why should anyone consider taking a multivitamin? When should they start, and what does that mean for them?
It's a really, really good question, and it's an important one, and it's one that I get all the time as well. We do want to get most of our nutrition from our diet and from our food, but the truth is we're not doing a fantastic job in Canada. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and so I tend to work with people with a decent sense of what a vegetable is, and they're doing fairly well, and I still see nutrient gaps there. It's hard to eat 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. It's hard to eat mostly whole foods, and that alone can lead to certain nutrient gaps. But then we also have to take into consideration our lifestyle. Today, we're under a lot of stress. On average, our stress level is higher than it's been in the last few years, but especially in the last generation. And chronic stress leads to a higher need of nutrients. If you add into that any chronic illnesses or anything else that might be going on in your body, like digestive issues, that leads to more of a even higher need of nutrients. And so that's where a multivitamin can really come in and really can shine by just providing this base level of nutrients that you're going to get every day, that can fill in any gaps that might be missing and can balance out things like the nutrients needed to deal with chronic stress or any absorption and assimilation problems that might be happening in your digestive system. So they're really like an insurance policy. They aren't a replacement of a healthy diet, but they can really just help to make sure your body can function properly on a day-to-day basis.
That is amazing. I love that answer. I hear this term suboptimal levels of nutrition a lot when it comes to like why you should be taking a multivitamin. What does that mean? And can you address that?
Yeah, because this is kind of a missing factor when it comes to our nutrition. So if you pick up a packaged food and it has that nutritional panel on it, and it tells you what percentage of vitamin C or calcium is in the product, that is just relating to the recommended daily allowance for that nutrient. And that is simply to prevent illness. So the vitamin C level that is listed is just to make sure you don't get scurvy. And the vitamin D is to make sure you don't get rickets. It's not an optimal level. And there's a difference between those two. There's the disease prevention level of nutrients, and then there's the optimal level of nutrients where your body functions the best. And when our nutrient levels are just kind of living in that middle ground, we can have a lot of symptoms. If our magnesium levels are in suboptimal levels, we can have a lot of muscle tension and tiredness. If our B vitamins are in suboptimal levels, it might not be low enough to get something like pellagra, which is the disease state of too low of vitamin B3, but your adrenals might not be working as well. Your body might not be handling stress as well. And so what we want to do is be looking at that optimal level. And that's where your nutrients from your food is really high, and you're covering any gaps or deficiencies that might have popped up either with a multivitamin or with specific nutrients.
That's awesome. So, Lisa, I'm also curious. I mean, this was a question I had a long time ago. It's why do I need to take a multivitamin? Let's say I eat really, really healthy and I'm having, eating all my fruits and vegetables. Do I still need to take a multivitamin? At what point do I determine that for myself?
Really good question, because it's a bit of an individual question, but as a general rule, most of us will still need some sort of multivitamin, because you're doing a wonderful thing making sure you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables. That's absolutely wonderful. But how's your stress level? Are you dealing with a regular stress on a regular basis? Are you in a stressful job? How is your body functioning? Do you have any symptoms of that just suboptimal level of nutrients? And if there's an answer to yes to any of that, then bringing in a good quality multivitamin can just fill in those gaps. And it provides a balance for those days that aren't as fantastic, because I'm a nutritionist and I don't eat 10 servings of vegetables every single day. And it's just not possible usually in this world right now. Some of you are doing it, and that's absolutely wonderful. And you may not need a multivitamin, but for most of us living this life, we're going to need something.
Yeah, I definitely am with you on that one. You've mentioned stress a few times now being a factor as to why you should be taking a multivitamin. I don't think I ever really knew how stress can affect, your entire body as a whole, and how multivitamins kind of really play into that. Can you elaborate on that? It's been a really stressful period the last year, and what exactly happens to your body when you're going through stress, and how does a multivitamin help with that?
Yeah, I work with chronic stress regularly with my clients because this is a big deal, and it's especially a big deal right now. We've had so much stress in our lives lately. So one of the ways to think about it is when you're in that stress state, when you're in that fight or flight state, either because you're in a stressful moment or you're worrying or thinking about that stressful moment, because your body will put you in that fight or flight state then as well. Your body is doing whatever it can in all of those moments to keep you alive. That means it is paying attention to this moment right now, not a day from now or a year from now or 10 years from now. It is only concerned with your survival in this moment, and it will use every single nutrient it can get its hands on to keep you alive. This is why our nutrient needs go higher when we're in chronic stress. I like to think about it like money. So our long-term survival, our parasympathetic nervous system, that's the rest and relax state. It's like our RSP. It's our long-term retirement fund. And our stress state is the money you have in your hand right now. And when you're in a stress state, your body will spend every single dime. There's no worries about the future because it's not paying attention to that. It's only paying attention to right now. And we wouldn't live that way with money. We wouldn't be spending every dime we have our hands on every single day, but in nutrient wise, we are. And so every day that you spend in that stress state leads to a need for more nutrients to make up for everything your body spent to keep you alive in that moment. And that is just hard to fix with just your diet because human beings were never meant to live always in the stress state like we do right now. Animals never live that way. We are the only animal that spends more time in the stress state than the relaxed state, and that alone increases our need for nutrients.
Oh my goodness, that's such a great analogy. I love that. The RRSP versus what money you have to spend right now. That's great. Thank you so much for explaining that. So, let's say you've made a decision that, you're going to need some vitamins to purchase as a general health boost. Where do you start? Do you start, sort of taking a general multi, a specific vitamin? How do you really determine where to start there?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question because what we want to do is make sure that what we're taking is going to be helpful for our body. So when you go into a health food store and you're at let's say vitamins, the multivitamin aisle, you're going to see a huge section and a huge price range as well. And there is a big difference between the two. There's a big difference between nutrient like supplements found in a drugstore versus a health food store as well. So we're going to look at the health food store because that's just a good place to start. And you're going to see the two different types are isolated nutrients and then whole food nutrients. Most supplements on the market are isolated nutrients. So that could be a multivitamin made of just a single isolated nutrients. And 99% of the supplements on the market are like this. And what that is they'll take just vitamin C or just ascorbic acid and put it in, and then just vitamin D and put that in. And that's fine. It will help. Your body will use these nutrients to help find balance, but there's no food in nature that comes with just isolated nutrients. And what we're learning is that our body needs more than just those essential vitamins and minerals. There's cofactors, there's enzymes, and phytonutrients and antioxidants that are needed for the absorption of those nutrients. And we're starting to see that it might help with the bioavailability or the absorption of the nutrients. But what we do know is that over time, the overuse of just those isolated nutrients may deplete the cofactors needed for absorption. I lived through this myself. When I first came into this industry, it was 2002, and I was very, 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 very unhealthy after many, 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 many years of chronic illness and chronic stress. And I had huge deficiencies. And I took a really strong, high potency, good quality multivitamin for quite a few years. And this made a giant difference in my health for a while. Eventually, though, the daily use of this very high potency isolated nutrients depleted my cofactors, and it made it so that multi, which made a huge difference in my health, now was becoming a problem. My skin was breaking out all the time. I was tired. I wasn't feeling well, and I was in school for nutrition at the time. And one of my textbooks talked about what happens when you over supplement, and there was the list of all of my symptoms. So I stopped taking the multi, and I felt a lot better. And for a long time, I still to this day don't tolerate multivitamins in just their isolated form. So instead, I use whole food based multis, and these are ones that my body really likes because instead of just the isolated nutrient, whole food multis have integrated that nutrient into a food. And this is what mega food does, is that they have this very special process and they create food state nutrients where they literally integrate that vitamin C into an orange, and each nutrient has its own food it gets integrated with, and that leads to all of the cofactors and coenzymes and antioxidants needed for absorption. And until I found mega food, I couldn't take a multi, and I couldn't take it for 2 days in a row. And I've now taken mega food multi for 2 years in a row. And so just, it's something to keep in mind, depending on where your health is. If your body is depleted, or if you have been supplementing for a long time and you're just not getting the benefits anymore, maybe it's because your body needs those cofactors as well. And that's a time to look for these whole food nutrients.
Wow, that's a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I think when I first really started walking down the vitamin aisle, I was just really generally overwhelmed. You just have so many different choices, and I never really understood what whole food vitamins even really meant. Like, I was like, this just sounds, it's just more expensive, so I'm going to pass. But when you kind of take a look at, what the delivery process is and what form of a vitamin is best for your body and absorption, it really kind of makes sense. Can you talk about why whole food vitamins would then be more expensive? Because there is usually a huge variety of price ranges that are available in the vitamin aisle. And I will be the first one to put my hand up to say I gravitate towards the lower cost and potentially ones on sale. But, can you talk about why whole food vitamins would be more expensive?
Yeah, and I'm the same. I'm very budget conscious.
I love a bargain shopping experience.
Me too. But I also like the best bang for my buck. I want
100%.
to make sure I'm absorbing it, and I'm also cognizant of the budget of my clients. So I'm always making sure, like, when I'm recommending something, is this the best thing for their body? And but I always like to look at nature. We don't fully understand everything that we need out of food. We discovered vitamins 100 years ago. It was the early 1900s when vitamin A was first discovered, and every few years we discover something new about food, and then we're like, Eureka! We now understand food, but we actually don't. We can take apart an apple, but we can't put it back together. There's stuff we're still missing. And so when we look to food as the genius and brilliance that it is, when Mother Nature has created it, we can start saying, okay, how much can we mirror that the best way possible? So whole food vitamins do cost more because they have food. Mega Food, for example, they partner with farmers. They have farm partners, and they buy produce. They actually ship produce to their manufacturing plant. They have broccoli and oranges shipped right there, and there aren't many supplement companies that actually start with food, and they do the entire process themselves, from the drying of the food powders to help add those cofactors right to their products. Like, I love their blood builder, their iron supplement, because it has real beets in it, and man, does it work. It really helps with absorption. But then they also have this integration process to make their food state nutrients, and that helps with those cofactors and the absorption. And it's a really slow process. It takes 236 hours minimum to make each batch. And when I look at supplements, when I look at different companies, I look at transparency, I look at quality, I look at their relationship with the environment and their footprint in the world. One of the reasons why I use Mega Food is half the fact that they're really absorbable and they work really well, and the other half that I like how they run and I like how their business is handled. But when I work with my clients, and I have a client who is struggling with magnesium, but her body is screaming magnesium deficiencies, and so I say, well, why don't you try the Mega Food one? The magnesium level is so much lower than the other ones, but she immediately felt a difference with it. And I see the same thing with Mega Food Blood Builder. And so that just always reminds me, okay, there's brilliance to food, that when we are respectful to how our body normally assimilates a nutrient, we can get more out of each dollar we spend in our supplements. And so it's about what is it in your budget, and that always pay attention to that. I'd rather you buy food than spend big bucks on supplements, but also looking at what will bring the best good for your body, and what will make sure you're keeping in mind that absorption and assimilation and those cofactors.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Lisa, one of the things that we really want to make sure we equipped our audience with today is really the knowledge to walk into any vitamin aisle with confidence, whether it's a mega food product they purchase or a different product. You know, honestly, if you were to look at any multivitamin label, what would you say are some of the key certifications that you would recommend for your clients to have on a multivitamin?
Yeah, because supplements will brag about their good stuff. Like they're really good at bragging about their good stuff. So
Yes, they are.
yeah. So when I pick up a bottle, the first thing I look for is when they are listing the nutrients, I want to look at what else it says on that same line. So if it's a whole food vitamin, it will list the food that's a part of it. So in mega foods, it'll be like vitamin E and rice, or the minerals usually are with Saccharomyces cerevisiae or nutritional yeast, and they'll say that on the same line. If it's an isolated form, then I'm looking at the form. Are they using like the cheaper ones, like magnesium oxide that doesn't absorb very well, or the more expensive ones like magnesium citrate or bisglycinate? So I'm looking to see, okay, what's the quality here just by the forms of their nutrients. Then I look at the non-medicinal ingredients. This is where you really see a lot of good stuff, or bad stuff, really. It's not the good stuff. So in the non-medicinal ingredients, this is where you might see some synthetic ingredients. You might see dyes or flavorings. You might see lubricants, and all of these are part of that manufacturing, but they're not always necessary. The dyes are completely unnecessary. It's just what makes it a pretty color. So I always make sure there's no dyes in products, and just keep an eye on that. And then look for things like non-GMO project verified. That means that every step of the process has been verified not to have any genetically modified organisms. I love the new label that's been coming out, which is glyphosate residue free. And I'm a big proponent of staying away from glyphosate if you can. Glyphosate is a pesticide that can or may harm our gut, and the residue is on some of our foods, like some of our grains, but can also get into our supplements. So when a company has gone out of their way to get the glyphosate residue-free sticker, that means I know they are really paying attention to the sourcing of everything. I live dairy-free, so I look for that little sticker. Gluten-free is a good one because it doesn't usually need to be in a supplement anyways. And then if you're vegan or vegetarian, they'll usually have a little emblem as well. And so looking for what they brag about is a really good thing, but also check out those non-medicinal ingredients. You get a lot of good info there too.
Yeah, that's really great. And I totally agree with you. I mean, I did not know what any of these labels really meant. And I think it's really important to understand what, not just Whole Foods is, but what some of these other labels and certifications are, and what to look for. You kind of touched on this already, but are there things that we should be really mindful of and consider a red flag if we notice it on a label for a multivitamin, for example?
I would really pay attention to how small is that tablet. The smaller it is, the more compressed it is, the harder it is to break down. And so like if they're bragging about how easy it is to swallow, it's probably highly compressed. And so that's not something on the label, but they'll talk about the size. Unfortunately, it's the big ones that are the least compressed and easier to break down. But it's the dyes to really watch for, because those are completely unnecessary. And then some people are sensitive to the lubricants like magnesium stearate, and so just keep an eye on those, especially if you're sensitive to them. If your digestive system is just quite sensitive, stay away from any product that has non-medicinal ingredients you don't understand, that are just chemical names, or contact the supplement company and ask them why, what is this, and why is it there. Transparency is a big deal, and I've been doing this for 25 years, where I just, if I have a question, I ask the company, and how, and their answer matters. And so like Mega Food, you can actually watch them make the product. There's cameras in their factory all the time, and I love that kind of transparency. But just even just finding the website and sending them some questions can really help you get to know the quality levels of the different companies out there, because there's a lot of great stuff.
That is awesome. I think, again, you may have answered this, but why would you say, we've kind of talked about Mega Food and the extensive process they go through. There are other vitamins that also are whole foods, but what would you say you've noticed in the industry from what the Mega Food whole process is versus others? And where would you say you come into play with making that recommendation to your clients?
I love the history. Mega Food's been around for a long time, and they've been doing it this way for a long time. And to me, that matters a lot, because it says to me that they have gone out of their way to make sure this is a really good process. Then when I dove a little bit deeper into their food state nutrient process, I saw how important it was to make sure it was a proper integration. And so they have photos that they show publicly of, like, here's what it looks like when the nutrient is properly integrated inside that cell of food versus if it falls out. And it's just these little things that make me say, okay, deep breath of relief of, okay, here's a company who's making sure that I can get the information I need to be able to say this is safe for my clients and safe for me and my family. I reach out to many companies and ask them similar questions, and find out, like, if a whole food supplement is claiming this is a whole food, I want to know, okay, show me that this is something that you're paying attention to. And they can be very respectful questions, but it just gives an idea of how much importance they put into quality and testing and all of those really important things. And you may not know what questions to ask right away, but even if you pick up the bottle and say, it says it's whole foods, send them a message and say, hey, how do I know this is a whole food? And let them tell you their answer and see what they say.
That's awesome. One of the other questions that we get a lot is if you're a first-time user of multivitamins or vitamins in general, how do you gauge when they are, officially effective? How long does it take? And what does that look like for an individual person? Do you just generally feel better? Do you wake up, feeling real good one day? How long does that process take? And, when do you know it's working?
And that changes with each person. So if you're just like multivitamins, you don't always notice anything because it's just kind of filling in all the gaps. You may notice a slight change in energy. What I notice is my tolerance to stress is better because my body just feels a little bit more relaxed in life. But generally multis, you don't always feel a difference. Whereas when you're taking in single nutrients, say you're bringing in a magnesium supplement or an iron supplement, sometimes and kind of frequently the body tells you this is working pretty fast. Like if your iron level is low and you're taking in an iron that your body is absorbing well, your energy starts working itself up, sometimes in a few days, but usually in a few weeks. Magnesium, I've seen the same thing. Whereas other ones, you might have such a deficiency that it could take 3 to 6 months before your body is at a better level. So sometimes you're just kind of trusting in the fact that this is what my body is needing, and I'm taking it. But what I love about the body is it does tend to give you at least a bit of a high five when you're doing something right, and give you just like almost, it could be a intuitive sense of well-being sometimes, of just like, yeah, this is feeling good. But if you pick up a bottle one day and you're just like, I don't know, give your body a break. It's okay to put it back down and just say, okay, listen to your body. That's what the undieting method is that I work with my clients, is to really respect your body and listen for those signs of this is feeling good versus this isn't feeling good. But I hear from people all the time getting surprisingly fast responses from nutrients. It's iron and magnesium being the main two. This week I've had feedback on both of those in relatively short amounts of time. So sometimes you can feel different really quickly, but most of the time it's just this kind of like sense of well-being that you get.
Yeah, for sure. The other question that we have is, and we get a lot of this as well, is once I start taking a multivitamin, do I have to take it for, every single day? Can I skip, and return if I feel like I'm eating right for a certain period of time? Or what's your recommendation there?
It's best to take it every day, especially if you've developed some like deficiencies due to chronic stress. But there's no harm in skipping days. I tend to take vitamins on Monday to Friday, and then on weekends there's a couple important ones that I make sure I get in, but I don't take everything on weekends, and that's okay. And so there isn't going to be harm to your body if you skip them per se. Your body doesn't need to be weaned off vitamins or minerals. But there can be benefit to just get those levels back up a bit faster by taking it every day. So really kind of going with your body and your lifestyle. It's better to get it in sometimes than to never do it at all. So don't feel too upset with yourself if you miss a few days. Just get right back on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, on top of that as well, the other question that we always get is, if I'm taking a multi, should I be taking anything else with it? Maybe even seasonally, or does the multivitamin really just encapsulate everything that you need?
A multi gives you kind of a low level of everything. So it's not going to fix big deficiencies. It's really just kind of giving you that insurance policy, like we talked about earlier. Most Canadians do need vitamin D, at least in the wintertime, because our lack of sunlight. And many people develop deficiencies in other nutrients. Some common additional supplements are things like vitamin C and B vitamins, magnesium, calcium sometimes too. Like the biggest deficiencies I see are B vitamins and magnesium. And those ones are hard to rebalance with just your diet if your levels are pretty low. But a lot of the times, if you just have space in your life for one thing, a multi is that really good kind of blanket to cover everything.
That's really great. And I'm really happy you mentioned vitamin C and vitamin D, because they've been a hot topic, particularly in the last year. When you're taking these, vitamin C and vitamin D, just those focused vitamins, what should be in terms of them interfering with the multivitamin? Do you ever have to worry about overdosing or taking too much of a vitamin C or too much of a vitamin D? Because there is a bit of a baseline there that's provided.
Yeah, and there you can overdo it. So back to my old story of I overdid nutrients. I never got to a toxic level, but I still overdid. I was stressing my body out from these nutrients. Vitamin D, being a fat soluble vitamin, you can take too much. But what's in a multi is still below even what your doctor recommends as a supplemental dose. So you usually can be supplementing on top of your multi and still be perfectly safe. If you're ever worried, you can get a blood test just to ensure you're not taking too much. But research has found that that the too much is well in the 8,000 to 10,000 international units a day. So that's much higher than most people are supplementing. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin, and your body will regulate it. If you take too much vitamin C, you hit what's called bowel tolerance, and your body goes whoosh and gets rid of the extra vitamin C. That usually happens only at very high doses as well, and doesn't always happen when you're sick. So when you're sick, your body needs extra vitamin C, and so that tends to raise your tolerance for it. But the water-soluble vitamins, it's hard to get to a toxic level because your body washes it out, but then you're also wasting your money. You're washing out those extra nutrients. So if you're ever worried and concerned that you might be taking too much of something, just contact your healthcare provider, be that your doctor, a pharmacist, it could be a naturopath, or a nutritionist that has a good handle on supplements. They can just take a look at what you're taking and make sure that it's still within those safe ranges.
That's really great advice. We're kind of approaching our last question here, and we just really want to revisit again some of the main points to make sure our audience is equipped with. So if you had to narrow down 3 main things to look for in a vitamin when you're walking down that vitamin aisle, what would they be?
Oh, great question. So I always look for whole food vitamins and minerals because of the absorption and assimilation benefits, and my body doesn't tolerate anything else. So the question of, is this a isolated nutrient or is this a whole food nutrient? And you know it because it says, it talks about the food right on the same line. What other ingredients are added to it? So what's in those non-medicinal ingredients? Is there anything kind of worrisome, or is everything okay? And then what other things are they bragging about? So is it non-GMO project verified? Is it glyphosate residue free? If I'm gluten-free, is it a gluten-free product? That sort of thing. So looking at those braggable little stickers on the front. Those are the first 3 that I look at when I pick up a product, and you can get through that pretty fast. So it doesn't take a long time to go through that aisle.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, I really hope this podcast is helpful for our audience. Again, these are questions that we get all the time and some that I can definitely relate to. I have always felt really lucky to be exposed to this level of knowledge, having worked with this brand. And, I always tell my friends now, we'll like pick up a package or a label, and I'm like, nope, watch for this. No. And like, I've become such a, quick picker upper on these things. And I think it's easy. It just takes a little bit of practice. But once you know what to look for, again, you can't unlearn it. You'll just kind of go with it from here on out. I have a fun last question. Lisa, what are you taking right now, vitamin wise? Like, is that something you're willing to share?
Yeah. So I take a multi every day. So I take a Mega Food multi. I take magnesium because my body struggles with absorbing it, and I'm self-employed. So I have enough stress that I need some magnesium. And I'm currently taking quercetin because it's an antihistamine and it's the springtime, and it tends to really keep my allergies at bay. So those are my main 3. Yeah. I take iron when I need it. So I do Mega Foods Blood Builder semi-regularly, depending on where my energy levels are. And I bring in the Mega Foods B complex too, here and there, depending on how I'm feeling.
Oh my goodness. I can totally relate. Honestly, for me, Mega Foods Blood Builder has just been life-changing, game changer for me in a big way. And I also take the B complex. I really noticed the big difference in my energy levels and just overall health. I also take the women's multi. So that's really great. I'll bring in the D's when the season comes, and same with the C's. But it's really great to be able to kind of determine what my body needs. And again, like you said, the multivitamins cover the base grounds, and then you can elevate yourself thereafter with what your body needs. Absolutely. Well, that's it. That concludes our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for the great questions.
me as well. So we are going to leave Lisa's website as well as her contact information right below the link here, wherever you are actually watching this podcast or listening to it. As well, please feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Megafood Canada is the handle, or on Facebook, again, at Megafood Canada. You can always reach out to us via email as well, info@megafoodcanada.com, with any questions you may have, or if you'd like to get in touch with Lisa Kilgour for further questions or private consulting. So thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a lovely day, and we hope you feel a lot more confident walking down that vitamin aisle.